Hi, I'm Ryan Schlechte. Throughout the podcast serial and the play The Crucible, hysteria and stereotypes played a big part. I'll be talking about how hysteria plays more of a part in The Crucible, while stereotypes play a bigger part in the serial podcast. A stereotype is defined as a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Hysteria is described as an exaggerated or an uncontrollable emotion or excitement, especially among a group of people. First, I'll start with hysteria playing a part in The Crucible. The Crucible is a play based on events of the Salem witchcraft trial. It took place in a small Puritan village in the colony of Massachusetts in 1692. What basically happened was this. There's this guy named John Proctor. He had an affair with this girl named Abigail, who worked for him. He finally ended the affair, and she was fired, but Abigail wanted to be with him still. During this time, many weird things were already going on in the town of Salem, and people blamed it on witchcraft. And many people were going to trial for being accused of witchcraft, and Abigail, the girl John had an affair with, accused John's wife of witchcraft too, in hopes of being with John because she would be executed if found guilty. So they ended up going to trial, and this huge case came out of it all. There's 200 people accused, and 20 were executed. Now I'm going to talk about hysteria playing a big part in The Crucible and the first example of it. This occurred in Act 1 of the play. Abigail, in fear of having her name ruined because of her affair with John Proctor, pretends to know who the witches are in town and starts making false accusations. Of those accusations, one ends up being Elizabeth Proctor, John's wife. She does this trying to get her killed, so John goes to her. In the act, she says, My name is good in the village. I will not have it said my name is soiled. Goody Proctor is a gossipy liar. Her accusations in quote is an example of hysteria because she makes it to a group of people, and it isn't true actually. Another example of hysteria is when Abigail rises in front of a group of people pretending to be saved by the grace of God and saying in Act 1, I want the light of God. I want the sweet love of Jesus. She says this because of the reactions other people have when she claims them a witchcraft. The emotions cause her to pretend to exaggerate her own emotions, which is basically the definition of hysteria. The last example I have of hysteria in the play The Crucible would be in Act 2, when Elizabeth accuses John of going to Salem to see Abigail. He gets scared of her judgment and yells at her and places the blame to her. He says, No more, I should have warned you down when you first told me your suspicion. Later on, he then gets scared of losing his wife and gets very angry, and his emotions are affected by the crowd around him, as well as his wife being accused of witchcraft. Okay, so now that I've talked about hysteria playing a big part in The Crucible, I will be talking about how stereotype played a big part in the serial podcast. A stereotype is defined as a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. Okay, so a quick summary of the podcast serial is basically this. There's a high schooler named Adnan Syed. He's a Muslim and Pakistani American. He's in a relationship with this girl named Hyman Lee. They technically weren't supposed to be together because of Adnan's religion, but they kept it secret from their parents. And so they dated for a while, but like most high school relationships, they broke up. Hy ended up moving on and ended up dating an older guy. A while after they started dating, she ended up disappearing and eventually was found dead. And surprise, surprise, Adnan, the ex, was the first person people looked at for it. He eventually gets accused of murder and is actually convicted of it. So you're probably wondering how the stereotype was used in this. Adnan is a Muslim and Pakistani American. In this case, there's no clear DNA or accurate witness statement to be like, wow, he really did it. Here's his fingerprints on her dead body. So it's difficult to find who actually was guilty. In the case, there are some phone records and witness statements that make it look like Adnan did it, but nothing to pinpoint him exactly because of the flaws in the story or the phone records. Adnan being convicted with such little evidence demonstrates that stereotyping was present during this case. An example of stereotype happened with the juror. One guy tells them he doesn't think he can be impartial because he's got a friend of the Muslim faith and he's seen him and his son also mistreat their families. The juror said that in episode 10. The juror is clearly exhibiting religious prejudice, as the actions of two Muslim men do not represent the entire religion. This is clearly a stereotype in the courtroom that was used against Adnan Syed and his conviction of murder. Okay, so to wrap all this up, hysteria played a big part in the play The Crucible, while stereotypes played a big part in the podcast serial. Both of these things destroyed people's lives. Like I said earlier, false hysteria used in Salem witch trials led to 200 trials and 20 people being executed when they weren't actually witches. Stereotypes ruined Adnan Syed's life as well. The stereotype caused him to get convicted of murder, and now he has to spend the rest of his life in prison from his teenage years all the way up, and he doesn't get to experience a normal life.